All right. Well, welcome back to Always on the Hunt. Today we have a special guest. It's somebody who truly embodies what it means to be a rainmaker in the pro AV industry. With over 25 years of experience, Michael Lakhter has helped build and scale some of the most recognized brands in the space, from growing Key Digital from startup to an industry staple to becoming the #1 sales rep for both Kramer and Lightwear. He's now serving as a VP of sales at Vigilink, continuing to bring his energy, enthusiasm, insight, and results everywhere he goes. In this episode, we'll dive into what sets top performers apart, how to build lasting relationships in a competitive industry, and the mindset that keeps him at top of his game. So with all that said, let's welcome in Michael. Michael, welcome to Always on the Hunt.
Thank you, Leo. I'm excited to be here, and always good to see you in person or face to face.
Yeah, absolutely. This is great. I'm excited to have you. I think that this will be a fun conversation, something that's, will be insightful and valuable to the listeners, but also entertaining as well. I know you and I always have some pretty fun and spirited conversations, so I'm looking forward to it.
Same here.
All right. So let's just jump in. Let's go to your background and how you got started in the AV industry and, with Key Digital. Let's talk about that startup phase a little bit, and your incredible growth there.
Yeah, sure. Prior to Key Digital, I was actually in real estate in about 1999. I met Mike Zinberg, and he asked me to basically participate in the new company, Key Digital, as a salesperson. I didn't have any experience selling any technology, obviously, but I took on the challenge. And basically set up a go-to-market strategy plan. And it was just myself, Mike, marketing person, and order processing person. And for about 6 years or so, just basically the four of us started growing the company. I think generated about $4 to $5 million a year in sales back then. And at one point, Mike said, well, how do we take it to the next level? And we sat down and started looking at different options, started hiring regional sales managers, East, West Coast, Central. And the rest is history. We kind of just blew up. And one way we blew up is by going after regional and national distribution.
Yeah. So distribution was definitely one of your big go-to-market strategies and channels. Working with distributors can be challenging at times, right? You're sending them a lot of gear. You're putting sometimes on consignment, sometimes on return policies and cash flow and all these other challenges. Why distribution at the time versus building, direct shipping?
Yeah, so sure. Great question. One of the challenges when you start a new brand, it's really hard to get any penetration with direct dealers, especially AVI SPL, diversified AVI systems. They just don't look at you unless you have something that's so incredible, they're willing to take a shot. So the fastest way to go to market, at least back then, was through distribution. And the plan was, let's identify some vertical markets like residential, commercial, datacom, IT, and security, and find the best possible distributors in those markets. But yes, it can be challenging, but the reward is
Right.
is worth the risk, and definitely we grew the company really fast.
Yeah, that initial lift from zero to that first $4 or $5 million, that had to be, a lot of hard work and hustle, which I think is, very, very, symbolic of who you are, right? So talk about those early days of getting out there, right? Nobody knows who Key Digital is, and all of a sudden this upstart, companies calling them saying, why Key Digital versus some other established players?
So, well, basically, of course, we started to generate sales, selling on the distribution side, and then generating sell-through on the outside. But one of the things is I had to travel about 70% of the time nationally. And that was a little bit challenging, but I was young. I was,
Right.
I had nothing better to do, right, than to fly around and train salespeople on our technology. So that was great. But at the same time, it was challenging because, as I mentioned, we had about 4 or 5 people. So during the day, we get purchase orders, and at night, I would be shipping, I would be warehousing, I would be climbing on.
Wearing every hat, right?
Exactly. I would be sweeping the floor and so on and so forth. So, as you know, when you start a small company, you gotta wear multiple different hats, and I think that's one of the things that keeps me going because I have a lot of experience in all different departments.
Right. Right. But you take that same mentality, right, into your current roles, even though you don't have to wear every hat now.
Right. Well, right now I work for Vigilink. I'm the VP of Sales, which is great. At the same time, between you and I, where I am in my life, I would actually prefer to be a regional sales manager. And why? Because as a regional sales manager, for example, in Northeast, you just go out, you set a plan, you meet with customers, and you grow the business. As a VP of Sales, you got to manage people. Yeah. You got to be the coach, the mentor, the CPR guy, all those things. And sometimes it can be challenging. So that's why at this point in my life, I would actually would like to focus more on the regional position than an national. Right. But then when it comes, so I take it.
Yeah, I got to tell you, this one of the surprising things that I've learned as a recruiter is how many VPs of sales would love to go back to being an individual contributor and just being able to focus on themselves. Sometimes, let go of some of those additional responsibilities.
Right. So the day-to-day managing people over many years. Again, I love it, right? Because I get very personal with people. And I love to hear their challenges, opportunities, successes, and so on and so forth. But it can be challenging doing this for many years, day to day. So yeah, the regional position sometimes is better because you just focus on the customer, you grow the business, and everything is good. Life is easy.
Right. So you had a great run at Key Digital, built incredible team with a lot of talent. Your team members are all over the industry, doing very well for themselves. You moved on to Bosch, big names, Bosch, Kramer, Lightwear, and everywhere you went, success followed. You ended up being, one of the top performers, if not the top performer at each place. So talk about that. Talk about your mentality. Your title on LinkedIn is Rainmaker, right? Which is, if you're going to say that, you better back it up, which you have. So talk about your mentality, your approach, how you go about all this, to be a Rainmaker, for the companies you represent.
So you mentioned couple of things. Some of the greatest salespeople that I've ever worked with and actually learned from, believe it or not, Dan O'Donnell, who works for Midwich, Scott Pecchia, who happens to work for Midwich. Yeah. There's another guy, Ryan Rupert. He used to work at Kramer. Amazing guy. I'm sure they miss him. Steve Sampson, who was VP of Sales at Lightwear, just an amazing guy, and so on and so forth. So I can keep going on the names. As far as the Rainmaker thing, just a little bit personal background. So I was born in the Soviet Union. I was raised by a single mom, and she had to work 12 hours a day to put food on the table. And sometimes there were nights where there was no food, there was no water, there was no electricity. Yeah. So at about age 9, I realized, you know what, Michael, you have to go out and depend on yourself. So what did Michael do? I used to live in Ukraine. Now it's Ukraine, right? Right next to the port of Odessa, the city of Odessa port. And I used to trade coins, stamps at 9 years old. Yeah. The sailors used to pull up to the port from Europe, and American guys, and I used to trade with them. So I made some money, and I never went hungry after that. So my mom was obviously proud of me. At the same time, she was scared for me.
Right.
But times were tough. So my point is, my attitude, I'm very proactive. I'm not going to sit back. I'm not going to wait for somebody to tell me what to do. I put a plan together and I move forward. So proactive is the key to my success. Okay. And if I had to summarize my success in one word, that's the word. I'm very proactive.
Yeah. Well, you definitely have a lot of energy, a lot of drive, right? You're always moving. Do you think it's that that experience growing up in Ukraine or going through immigration, as well? Is that kind of what drives that constant energy, that constant hunger?
Yeah. So it's in my DNA. I can't help it. Even today, I'm doing really, really well. Obviously, I have a couple of real estate. I have a house, I have a condo, I have this, I have that. But at the end of the day, my mentality, I'm always poor, hungry, and motivated.
Right.
Doesn't matter what. It's in my DNA. And maybe that's because I went through immigration. Maybe it's because I went to sleep hungry sometimes, with no water, with no utilities, with no gas, with no heat. It's probably a combination of everything, right? We all have experiences through life that we go through that helps me to move forward. But for me, what I realized early on in life, Michael, if you just wait for your mom to bring the food, you're going to go hungry.
Right.
So do something about it. So all throughout my life, I've been very, very proactive. Doesn't matter what I do.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. And I'm sure that developed that grit, right? That tenacity that you needed and you continue to need, to be successful in this industry. It's funny you mentioned no matter what, I'm always poor, hungry. It's kind of like, I used to coach my kids in basketball when they were younger. And what I would always tell the team is like, hey, I don't care what the score is. We're always down by 1 and there's only 30 seconds left. And that's the energy we got to play with, right? Go get the ball, go get a turnover. Let's get the ball, let's go score. So it's the same mentality. You always got to feel like you still got to be hungry. You got to still, perform to win.
Right. And I can appreciate that. I actually played soccer semi-pro back in Ukraine. Before I moved to the States at a very young age, but I still play soccer today, believe it or not, on weekends.
Right.
So and it's competitive. We put on uniforms and there's a referee and they blow the whistle. Obviously,
it's not the typical Sunday league with beer in the hand. And
no, afterwards we get some beer, but it's very competitive. There's 10 teams playing, and the first team always wins the trophy and huge party and so on and so forth. But my point is, I'm very competitive. I'm a striker. I love to score goals. Right. So again, very proactive. Love to score goals, and that's how I live by.
It's amazing how being an athlete translates to sales. And how many. I look at resumes all the time. Top salespeople, they played sports in college, right? They have that sports mentality, that background, either in high school, college, even professional. And I think it's that drive to win, right?
Yeah. One thing I love about especially these kind of sports like soccer or basketball, they're like team sports, which I love, because just like in sales, you need a team behind you to support you. Like, I'll give you an example. For example, at Key Digital, we were doing really, really well, but nevertheless, we had 30 people there. We were not sort of a global company. But when I went to work for Bosch, for Kramer, for Lightwear, it really opened up my eyes, because I really understood what it's like to be a global company. And what was nice is that when you work for a global company, there's a lot of support. Like, there's subject matter experts who can come in on a Teams call and help you close the deal, because they know that particular vertical market. For example, when I worked for Bosch, I used to sell security cameras, and they had huge opportunities into prisons. I didn't know anything about prisons, but guess what? If I didn't speak that language,
right,
I could not sell even one camera. So it was nice. I can dial in the subject matter expert who knew everything there is about prisons
Right.
and how the security systems work, and they would help me. And all of a sudden, we get a PO for 300,000. So there's a team. There's a team behind you on the sales side, and this is how you can win big. So the team is big.
So you've been in both spots, right? You've been part of the team, and you've also coached the team. How do you balance both now, or how do you move from one to the other? And obviously, where did you have more, I guess, satisfaction or fun doing?
Well, when I was younger, I was the VP of Sales for Key Digital for 22 years. I loved working with the team, right? So I'm the kind of guy who is I'm a hunter, I'm a farmer, I'm an individual contributor. So I would always travel with the team, always talk to them, always support them, always give them positive reinforcement, motivate them.
So no matter what, you're still a player coach, right? Like you're still going to be on the field one way or another, right?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, now I'm playing in the soccer team, but I am getting older. So they said, Michael. So I said, guys, I'm done playing. And they said, no. Now you're going to be a player coach. So now sometimes I play and I coach, right? At the same time. At some point, I'm going to have to hang up my shoes. But yes, I also enjoyed being a regional sales manager for Kramer and for Lightwear, because I was a regional sales manager there, and all I really had to do was grow the business. And you're not the first one who kind of said to me, well, Michael, how is it that you hit your number year after year after year? Like even President of Kramer, Amit, sat me down, was like, how do you do it?
Right.
So to me, it's like this. There's a reason why franchises are successful. They're successful because they're selling a formula how to run a particular restaurant, for example.
Right.
And even though you're not a business person, or even though you never ran a restaurant, guess what? You can learn that formula and actually be very, very successful. So for example, when I came to a company and they said, Michael, your sales goal in the Northeast is $8 million. Okay, let's just start with that. I'm like, okay, sure. I divide that into 4 quarters. That's $2 million a quarter. That's 700,000 a month. That's 35,000 a day. 35,000 a day, because you got about 20 to 22 working days, right? So then once I got that down, that's like a formula. I said, how many dealers do I need to visit? How many consultants do I need to visit? How many end users do I need to visit? How many partners do I need to visit? How many distributors do I need to visit? Do I have any run rate in a territory? So I put all this formula or all this information into this formula, and I come up with a business plan. How do you get there? And that's basically what I do with any company that I join.
Yeah. Okay. So sales is, people always sit there and say it's a numbers game. You just have to know your numbers. You have to know your close ratios, this and that. But I think it's a little bit more, right? Because not everybody, a lot of people do their visits, but they don't close sales and they don't grow territories and they don't, exceed quotas and so forth like that. So as you're doing these visits, as you're doing these plans, let's talk about the relationships and the relationship building that you've done over the years. Why people still, when you call, they take your call and they set up the meetings and stuff like that. Obviously, you've done stuff over the years to earn that. Let's jump into that a little bit.
Well, I would say you asked the right question, right? Relationship is the most important. I mean, if you don't have the relationship, it's really hard to pick up the phone and call from, now I work for Vigilant. Most people say, who is Vigilant? They don't know. But when I say it's Michael Lakhter, they'll actually pick up the phone because they know me. So relationship is huge. The second thing I would say is, value. What is the product value, or what value proposition can you offer somebody to do business with you? I'll give you an example. I went to see an integrator out on Long Island, and he looks at the product line and he says, look, Michael, I got 4 or 5 competitors who are selling exactly the same thing as you're selling day in and out, and they're calling me. Why should I choose you? Because today, more or less, everybody's product
Yeah,
is working pretty good, right?
right,
It's a
right.
little bit off.
A lot of time you're just splitting hairs. It's just same boxes, just with different stickers on it.
So I said to him, well, what is it going to take for me to do business with you? Like, what do you want? And he said, well, one of the things I would really like to test you on is I'd like to have your personal cell number, because most sales guys have 2 cell phone numbers. I said, here's my personal cell number. You can call me, text me anytime of the week. He goes, yes, but I want to see how you respond when I'm in the I'm in a pinch, crunch, whatever.
Right.
And that's how we're going to decide if we're going to do business with you. So sure enough, like 3 weeks later, he calls me on Friday at like 4 p.m. or something like this. And he says, Michael, guess what? I need this, and this. And he calls me on personal phone. And you know what else? I need you to drive it up to me to Long Island.
Right.
Because on Monday, I want to do a demo. I didn't make any excuses. I jumped in my car. I told my wife, who we had dinner with, we're going to have to reschedule. And I drove all the way around Long Island on a Friday in New York City, which took me 2.5 hours. He knew that. And I dropped off that unit. Now, by the time I got home, I think it was like 9 p.m.
Right.
So I had to make it up to my wife twice. But but my point is,
right,
after that, the customer came back, and 2 weeks later, we worked on the project, which wound up to be a $250,000 project.
Nice.
So again, I dropped everything I was doing. I dropped my plans, and I just went to help the customer.
Yeah, that comes up over and over and over again with successful salespeople. It's being responsive, being trustworthy. People want to do business with people they trust and know will respond, and relationship building. I think really comes down to those main 2 tenets. Can I trust you, and will you respond? Right. So,
especially today, because there's really, from 10, 20 years ago, I think the market, there were less competitors. I would say there was like Crestron, Extron, and maybe 1 or 2 brands, in a particular marketplace. But today, for example, if you're selling AV over IP, or if you're selling HDMI, GBC matrix switches, when I went to ISC in Spain, there were like 40 or 50 brands selling exactly the same thing. So what is going to make your brand different? So I think it comes down to the salespeople, the soldiers on the ground.
Yeah.
You need to have guys like myself, if I'm a regional sales manager, who are willing to go out of their way on a Friday in the rush hour, drive from Brooklyn out to Long Island, take 2.5 hours, and drop off that product to a customer to be able to get a purchase order 2-3 weeks later down the road. And to me, that's a big difference. And of course, it's part of the relationship, because after that, he tells me, Michael, from going forward, all your projects are yours. That's it.
Right. Yeah.
And that's how you win it.
Yeah. About going above and beyond, but it's really not even above and beyond. That's what the expectation is these days. Otherwise, just order it online, right? Who needs a salesperson?
Order it online, or order with a brand that you feel comfortable with. I think COVID gave us a lot of opportunities, especially to companies like Kramer, like Lightwear, like Vigilant, as integrators started to look at other brands, and it opened up a lot of opportunities. And those brands became very, very successful because they were able to fill the need in the marketplace with product, but also have the right sales guys that will go out of their way and do it. And I see it each and every day when somebody tells me, Michael, I went out of my way and I drove and I gave that integrator, black box, and the guys were like ecstatic. 2-3 weeks, 3 months later down the road, he goes, you know what? I'm 9 months into my sales goal, and I already hit the number for the year. And of
Yeah.
course you did, because you go out of your way to help the customer, and they
Right.
appreciate it.
Yeah. When I was a dealer, I would I had one manufacturer's rep. Whatever he carried, that's what we sold. It didn't matter. Like, he dropped a line and picked up another line, that we dropped that line and we picked up the competitor. It didn't matter. We bought the rep, not the products, because to us, it really was, other than the control system that we had, obviously invested into the program, to us, in ceiling speakers and in ceiling speaker, like, you can't go wrong. There are
Right.
so many good brands, and same thing with the AV over IP and all the other stuff. You really got to buy that rep and that relationship. I personally think that's where the value is.
And I agree with it. So that's why I'm always willing to go above and beyond, except just talking about, hey, here's my product, please buy it, so on and so forth. So that's not good enough today. You just got to stay competitive.
What what trends are you watching? As the technology is changing, what are you seeing on the market? What are you looking at?
So I mean, I can tell you from just things that I'm watching, but also things that I sold and I was very successful. Like with Kramer, I actually got an award. I've sold more AV over IP globally in my region than the whole global organization, right? So I hit the number one spot on AV over IP. So AV over IP is huge. Now we're moving into 10G, which is SDVOE technology. And that's exciting because everybody's going to be probably upgrading within, if they're not doing it now, they will be doing it soon, the end users. Sure. So I see AV over IP just keep moving, it's going to keep moving forward. Lightwear is on fire. When I was at Lightwear, amazing product. I mean, just fantastic. It really is. It's made in Europe. Taurus is the product. It's amazing for BYD market. It just does and says exactly what it will do, and it just helps the end user to have a smooth, beautiful, easy, UCC conference type of meeting. So I think USB-C will keep moving forward as well. There's a lot of demand. Everybody's coming back to work in New York City. I took a subway last week. From Brooklyn to Manhattan, standing room only.
That's good.
8:30 in the morning. I felt like I'm a sardine in a can. I mean, just everybody's in the trains. A year ago, 2 years ago, nobody's on the trains. So
that's interesting you say that, because like people are, one of the big conversations is always going like, what's going on with the AV industry? Obviously, COVID was difficult to overcome, and then to right size afterwards, and then now we got tariffs, and now we got all these conversations between products and technologies and black boxes and software and this and that. But I always said, like, the biggest challenge to the AV industry is the work from home, because all of a sudden conference rooms go away, which is a huge part of it. Digital signage goes away. All this stuff goes away. And it's replaced by a little webcam, so it's good to hear that people are going back to the office, because I think that really helps.
It's definitely not happening. It's definitely, the offices are packed in New York City. I mean, the traffic is unbelievable. You can't walk, you can't drive. I mean, the streets are packed. The conference rooms are packed. The huddle rooms are packed.
Good.
The remote hybrid scenario. You're going to need those solutions. Yeah, maybe people will stay home one day a week, 2 days a week, but the other 3 days, they're coming back to the office.
Good.
Some of these offices, I don't know if you've had the opportunity lately to go. I love going to these offices because, Michael, go to the kitchen, like the kitchen is open. Anything you wish. I mean, like, seriously. They give you lunch, they give you anything you want to drink, they give you desserts, they give you it's just like unlimited. So why wouldn't you want to go? You get to hang out with people, you socialize, and I think it's great.
Now I'm a big believer in hybrid. allowing people, 1 day a week to kind of, or 2 days a week, kind of stay at home and just get busy work done. But there's something about office and office culture and the focus when you're there, the energy from other people, there's just something about it that you cannot replicate, at home. Just can't.
So one of the things is sometimes when I try to set meetings, sometimes it can be challenging. Mm-hmm. So my way out is like, you know what? I'm sure that you need to eat lunch, right? How about we meet on Wednesday and Thursday, 12 o'clock, and I'll just buy you lunch.
Right.
We don't need to do a Teams meeting. We don't need to do anything, corporate. Let's just go to lunch, have a good time, tell a couple of stories and see where it goes. And you know what? They love it. Take them to lunch, Italian restaurant. You sit face to face, you talk to them, you break bread, and all of a sudden the guard is down. They fall in love with you and they want to do business with you and say, Michael, why don't you come in? Let's do a presentation next time. They're ready to invite you in, open up the doors and do business with you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I had Steve Sampson on a few weeks ago, and he actually, talked about the same thing, the power, the magic of the face-to-face, there's only so much you can do over email and then phone call and then a Zoom call, but face-to-face, just being in person and being able to look each other in the eyes, there's a magic behind it for sure.
So funny story about Steve Sampson. So he was my boss at Lightwear. He was the VP of sales. I was the regional sales manager in the Northeast. I know Steve for 25 years because he was a buyer back at Twitter, and I used to sell him equipment, about $500,000 worth of equipment. So we go back a long way. But there was a meeting out in Long Island, again in Long Island. It was 9 a.m. And I just started with Lightwear, so I needed Steve's sort of technical expertise. Mm-hmm. And the guy's car broke down. So he literally rented some kind of a boat to cross the river.
A boat.
From New Jersey to New York. And then he took an Uber out to Long Island. I think it cost him like $500 just to show up to that meeting. But that's what I'm talking about. When I told him, Steve, stay home. I got this. Don't worry about it. He goes, no, Michael, I'm going to go out of my way because you need me and I'm going to be there. Yeah. 9 o'clock, he came in sweaty, ready to go, but he showed up. Yeah. My point is, I think that the top salespeople, we just don't give up, right? We just have this proactive approach. Just keep going.
Yeah, it's the grit, it's the tenacity, it's the, it's my favorite interview question to ask a salesperson is, what do you hate most about sales?
What do I hate most?
And there's only one right answer.
I'll tell you, the right answer for me is I love everything.
Right. Except for there's one thing that I'm sure you hate about sales.
I don't like to be micromanaged.
Okay. Well, I've learned over the years. No, the one thing that I always look for is losing.
Oh, losing. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That word is not in my vocabulary. Sorry.
Right. Exactly.
I'm a winner.
Right. No, but I think that's it. I think that's really, when people sit there and say, oh, I hate cold calling, or I don't want to do paperwork, or I don't like Salesforce or CRMs. No, like the only thing that should really piss you off about sales is losing. Right. So, and I think that's what drives good salespeople. They don't want to lose.
No, you're 100% correct. Obviously, nobody wants to lose, but at the same time, you need to be realistic, right? The best soccer player of our generation is Messi. Does Messi score every goal he can? No, he can't. But yet, he's the number one guy in the world. Same thing with sales. So, can you close 10 out of 10? I haven't seen anybody.
No, you can't. So, but even if you're at 70 or 80%, you take that 20, 30% of lost sales and it fuels you, right? It just it pisses you off and it gets you ready to go tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's part of the job, and you're gonna you're gonna lose some projects, but I don't let it get to me because my pipeline is huge. Like for example,
Right.
when I left Kramer,
Mm-hmm.
my pipeline in Kramer, I think I had over 200 projects in the pipeline.
Right.
So they were talking about Michael 9 months after I left.
Right. Well, let's talk about that. So I've heard that quote before. You put enough stuff in the pipe, things will start coming out the other end, right? Pipeline building, right? And that's your tenacity. What is your goal? Like, like if you have, an $8 million yearly quota, like what type of pipeline is it? Are you sitting here saying, all right, I'm going to close a third of it, so I need a $20 million plus pipeline, or like, hey,
Yeah, I mean, typically it's like times three is where you need to be because the numbers don't lie. So you really need to have a huge pipeline.
right,
So yeah, about 20, 22, 23, 24 million dollars in business to generate $8 million. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to lose that whole entire pipeline, because a lot of times projects, they move on to the following year, and
right,
you can still close that business the following year. But yes, you need to really work on the short-term pipeline and long-term pipeline. So I would do both.
right.
I would do both. Yeah.
But
This is where distribution. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Distribution comes into play to help the regional salespeople, because distribution provides some of the day-to-day run rate that you need to offset that number. Unfortunately, some manufacturers, some brands, not to mention names, don't believe in distribution, and me personally, I believe it's a mistake. So
right, I think a good balance of both, right? Even I always find distribution to be more about facilitating, right? They do all the logistics for you. They do the credit. They give you an extra sales team. So like they earn their value, right?
distribution is huge. Besides that, first of all, you can map out accounts with them. What does that mean? In other words, let's say you call an inside or outside sales guy on the distribution side and say, hey, who are your top 10 accounts? And he'll say to you, this guy, this guy, this guy. Hey, can we go see them in a week from now? Absolutely. So all of a sudden you're mapping accounts with the distribution sales rep who's taking you to those meetings. So guess what? You don't even need to make appointments. They're doing it for you.
Right.
Whereas if you don't have distribution, you got to do it yourself, which is not a problem, but it's a process and it takes a lot of time. So mapping accounts through distribution is huge, because they can definitely help you. The other thing is that no brand, no matter how big they think they are, is actually generating all the business with absolutely every integrator. It's just not possible. So distribution helps you that. Like for example, when I was at Kramer, we did some business with Architect out of Washington D.C., Virginia. They had two. I walked into the office. They said, "Michael, you ready to do a training today?" I said, "I didn't realize we're doing a training." He's like, "Yeah." We got 150 sales reps. So I did a training because I'm always ready to go, right? I'm like you.
Right.
I'm always on the hunt, right?
Right. Always. Gotta be, right?
So I trained 150 salespeople. And then lo and behold, a couple of days later, I'm getting quotes on projects. If I'm just by myself and I don't have distribution, well, I got to call each individual dealer by myself and try to get those projects, which is the most valuable commodity is time.
Yeah.
There's only so much time one person can bring. So I love distribution, besides logistics, besides warehousing, is working with the sales teams.
Yeah. Which is also kind of like the whole regional sales model, right? Is to help the dealers and then have the dealers, help you go sell that as well.
And sometimes the management says, oh, it's too expensive to do business with distribution. Well, no, it's not, because if I got to get on the road, on the plane, and fly, just take Northeast. and fly to all the states to cover Northeast, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. Versus if I call a distributor who's already there and I'm working with the rep, they can pull up that integrator on the Teams call and we can have a 30-minute call. It's a lot easier. So I think it's worth to pay, depending on the brand. Some pays 10, some pay 15. Key Digital, they made 20% from the dealer price. So they made a nice nice profit there.
Got it. So let me ask you, right now you're with Vigilink, tell us what's going on there. Why don't you update listeners on Vigilink? What's new? What's exciting? Or what are we gonna see at Infocom and so forth?
So Vigilink actually it's a new brand. They've been around for about 3 years under the brand of Vigilink. Mm-hmm. Having said that, they're actually been around for 20 years under another brand, Optolinks. So what happened was, as Optolinks, they are still today an exclusive master distributor for fiber solutions, fiber cable, but more importantly, fiber extension, transmitter, receiver, fiber switches, and so on and so forth. So you can run SDI, DVI, DisplayPort, USB, HDMI through fiber, long distances, 300 meters, 400 meters. That's what their core business is, and we're doing millions of dollars worth of business. As a Vigilink, we're introducing at Infocom a control system, a commercial control system, not residential.
Yeah.
That we'll be trying to get some of the commercial integrators on board. It's a heavy lift.
Yeah.
For those of you, the control system ecosystem embodies, audio, video, light, shades, thermostat, HVAC, security into one ecosystem. So it's a heavy lift, but it will require a lot of dealer training. But if we can get that original initial bump from some of the dealers, we can be really, really successful. So that's what we're going to be showing at Infocom. Make sure you stop by the booth, 5661. See Michael, I got a present for you. I'm not going to tell you what it is.
All right. Well, I'll stop by. Well, tell me about this control system. What's the value add, or how does it separate itself from some of the others?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, it's going to be more on the commercial side. So we're trying to position it as restaurant uses, but below it, based on price points. So, for example, let's say you go out to enterprise account, right, and they're doing some huge immersive room, and they need to control all the aspects of an ecosystem, like I just mentioned, audio, video, light, shades, thermostat, HVAC, and so on. And the integrator says, okay, this is great. It's $250,000 restaurant. Okay. And the end user turns around and says, you know what? I love it, but my budget is $150. So the dealer only has two choices. Choice number one is take away some features, which the end user doesn't want.
No.
Or take a hit on their profit margin, which why would he do that? Because he's working on 35%. Right. So that's also not good.
So you guys are positioning yourselves more to be like a lower cost, easier to program type of thing.
Yeah. So basically what we want to offer to the dealer, hey, you don't need to get rid of the features. You don't need to get rid of your profit. Right. If you can sell Crestron all day long, God bless you. But if you can't, come to Vigilink. The name of the brand positioning this is Nexus Control. And we're able to give you the same solution at $150K versus $250K that you could sell to the end user. Yes, it'll be plug and play. It'll sit on the cloud. It'll be local. It'll have all the bells and whistles. So come see it. I'm excited. We'll see how it goes. It's actually, the software is being written out of US. The guy I know, his name is Igor. He used to work at Key Digital for 15 years, doing campus control. So there's a lot of experience there.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. Very, very good. All right. Well, as we're wrapping up here, I did have a couple, more reminiscent type questions for you. You've obviously been around for a while. It's over 25 years now, right? Almost 30. Not to make
25,
you
Leo, 25.
25. You want to stay with the 25? Okay, we'll stay with
Yeah, I
25.
think 25. Yeah.
All right. But looking back, across your career, what lesson, what lesson sticks out the most, where you're like, man, I learned a lot from that.
What lesson? What lesson I learned for myself?
Mm-hmm.
Well, um, yeah, that's well, align yourself with the right people for sure.
Right.
I think that's important. Company culture is really, really important. If you're interviewing for a job and the company culture is the wrong culture, you're not going to last there for a long time. So I think when I was interviewing a few times after I left Key Digital, I didn't really understand the company
Mm-hmm.
culture stuff.
Right.
Now I do. So pay attention to that. Surround yourself with people who can elevate you, who can motivate you, who can keep you positive. Hire salespeople that are different. I'm different,
Right.
right? Hire salespeople that are unforgettable. I am unforgettable. Trust me when I tell you this.
100%.
Hire salespeople
Right.
who have a personality.
Yeah.
So that's some of the advice I guess I would also put out there.
Absolutely. All right. So one more time, let the listeners know how to get a hold of you, where they could find you in Orlando or on the web.
My cell number, 917-653-0202. Text me anytime. As you know, I drive all the way out in traffic, rush hour, and I'm always ready to help you with anything. I'm also on LinkedIn. I have 30,000 followers on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's the maximum that actually I'm allowed. And see you at Infocom, booth number 5661. By the way, Leo is the best recruiter in the North America. I don't know about the planet, but North America. I love you.
I appreciate it, Michael.
All the best to you. All the success. You're amazing. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for joining us, and to the listeners. Hopefully you're still with us. Hopefully you gained a lot from this episode. If you're still with us, please hit that like, the subscribe, 5-star rating, share with your friends and colleagues. We absolutely would appreciate it. And again, Michael, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.